All right, we are live. Um, Later than we usually do it because, as I've explained before, pretty much every Friday I'm working until 1 in the morning, and then I get back at somewhere around usually 2, and then I don't go to sleep until about 3 or 4. So you'll have to forgive my tardiness. Although I don't think it'll be too big an issue because I actually remember that there was one person that complained about it being too early. They're like, "You're streaming at 6 in the morning and I can't get." I was like, "Okay, well, here it is in the afternoon." And I've explained before, one of the reasons I liked doing it that early is because everyone was asleep, so there was no chance of an interruption, or almost next to no chance of an interruption. Um, but yeah, it's been a pretty eventful first week of the year. Um, Obviously, the election stuff was a disappointment because, as I explained before, I don't have an ego in the sense of when I can look at something that is empirically proven by fact and conclude this may not or most likely will not go my way. I still want at least the ability to give an effort to say, hey, you know what? I was at a disadvantage, but I tried. Um, so when you're not able to do that because the people in charge of information are not able to sufficiently supply you with it, I do draw an issue with that. And as I said a few days ago in the video, the only thing I can think to do at this point is to make sure that they receive the full brunt of investment on my part because I explained before last year was not a good period for someone that was trying to do something that was organized where you had this I don't want to go all give a full recap, but um there was a lot of people doing the whole I'll kick you out of here rhetoric, and then of course doing it as well. That happened twice, and then the 11 months without a job. So there was a lot of stuff that was just kind of eating away at my ability to really invest in it as I probably could have. But this next time, if I'm still alive in 2 years, it'll be very different. I've already sent them a message just yesterday asking about the 2026 elections because I'm very this whole thing of winning by rigging elections is I'm not even trying to sound like Carrie Lake, but what I mean is there should be at its root a number that you call where whoever answers it explains what's going on. They tell you, hey, this is the deal, this is the problem, this is whatever. Um, because when you don't have that number, when you don't have some easy access to this stuff, then you just basically get screwed. And I'm not going to let them do that again. So they're going to be in for a rude awakening as the next 2 years progress because I have all their numbers. Um, in the past, I usually called maybe once, twice a year. They're going to get called like there's no tomorrow. Greetings, very disappointed at the no. Well, look, I tried. I didn't even know about the statement of candidacy or whatever. Like as far as I could tell, you just had to get your signatures from people who lived in the area that you want to represent, and then whatever the minimum was or something higher than the minimum, and that would be it as far as just getting on the ballot. But that's why I said they don't properly. Maybe that lady from a year and a half ago might have mentioned it in passing for like 10 seconds or 20 seconds, but they don't have people who can readily explain this stuff. I don't know if you remember, but back in like March or April of last year, in the earlier part of last year, I called the Secretary of State's office and was given the runaround. Nobody could answer my questions. I just kept getting transferred from number to number to number. That's why I said they're not going to do this next time. It's like they've been giving you piecemeal information. Well, as I explained to you before, this stuff is not meant to be friendly to new people. See, this is the way it's supposed to go. When a politician in the great old democratic state of California decides that they're not going to have their seat anymore, they're going to retire, they have generally speaking, a hand-picked successor. And this successor is usually someone that's held office before. So that person has some idea of, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to go here, talk to these donors. They're not interested in, oh, some guy that's never held a position before wants to run for a house seat. Yeah. And it's not even just like, like you get ignored by the media or the other people running until, you end up surprised with how many votes you get. It really comes down to this stuff is just not meant for regular people to get involved. There's a point of no return where it's just politicians versus politicians, where maybe they start with something really small, like they work for a politician, which is not something I'm really interested in doing because a lot of the ones out here are snakes. And then after that, they go up their little ladder. It's a lot of just stuff that when unless you're if you're not part of the club, it's difficult. It's made more difficult than it would be if you were part of the club to get involved. Barriers to entry also explains why so many lawyers in politics. Well, this isn't even about the law. This is about the people. Because what does any normal person do when they want to make sure they're doing things correctly? They ask questions. And when you have statewide officials and local officials who can't answer the damn questions, you're going to be left confused. Do you realize I drove down to the Secretary of State's office not even 3 days ago, or roughly earlier this week within the, first few days of the year. And in driving down there, I asked, "Where are the papers to get signatures for, this congressional district?" This security officer who I don't expect to know anything, directs me to the 12th floor of this giant building with Reagan's name on the title. I go all the way up there, you know, pretty little building. It's very easy to get lost in. I asked them the same question. Lady writes down a number, says this is the corporate department, and oh, ever since the virus, we haven't had paperwork. And it's like the deadline is already passed almost a month ago, and they don't even know that. They're literally sending me on a complete waste of time expedition to call up some number where it's like even if you get the person on the phone to talk to you, it's still not going to matter because it's not as if they're in speaking to them on the phone, they're going to mail you these papers. So I'm irritated. I'm not like completely devastated because I didn't think I was going to win anyway. I didn't let Jem blow any smoke up my behind. We were like, well, you can defeat this person. Like, yeah, we're not going to go that far. I mean, you're talking about one of the what 3, 4 states with a jungle primary where it's so funny. In every other state, damn near, if you run as a Democrat and you run against Democrats, you beat the Democrats in the primary and it's you versus the other parties. Over here, if you get the most votes in the primary, whoever got the second highest number of votes will end up being the person that you go against. So, what I think would have happened is that in a best case scenario, I might have been able to get the second most number of votes, and then after that, they would have just buried me in the general. Mm. It's always so hard for people to hit the like button. I find that really fascinating. Like they'll watch a stream for 2 hours and they just can't click a button. Of course, I'll never forget when a Kots, not a Kotsky merchant. It was what's the other guy? Oh, Envoy. I'll never forget when he was like, "Does hitting the like button even do anything?" God, it's like it's like imagine being on a site and there's basic functions of it that are clearly meant to boost engagement and get a video around and like, does this even do something? No, it's just there for display. They just have that there to. to trick people. Oh man. I don't know what the deal is with these computer individuals and just how hard it is for them to do anything. I was even telling this one person about going around the district and just asking people what their opinion of this member of Congress is, and they were like, "Oh, uh, they might try to get you." Just like, what? How? What sense would it make for them to attack a person who's not a candidate? Like, what logic is there to that? But when you're dealing with people who've never run for anything, they're gonna say all types of stuff. Yeah, these things are just not new person friendly, not in the slightest. And it's sad too because it's like if if they had people where you could just call them and they explain everything and they were like readily available, you don't have to sit in some giant line all day. I would feel so much more bad about my like lack of doing anything. But it's like I called multiple numbers multiple times. I mean, that's why I said the only solution is to just call them over and over and over again until they can't do the redirect thing. You just have to just sit on the phone with them. It must be 3, 4, 5 hours a week. It's crazy. No, they haven't responded to my email yet. Don't worry, they're gonna get called if they don't. They have 3 days to respond to email, then they're getting called, and they're not gonna get called once or twice. It'll be over and over and over again. So sick of these bastards, man. I'm dead serious when I say I don't even care about like winning. It's just you don't even get to try. You don't even get to try. I said this whole thing is just such a joke. It is kind of funny. It's like they'll let somebody who can't even run for president, like Jank, like actually run for president, but then the person that I don't know. It's just nothing makes any sense anymore. It's all just backwards. 'Cause that's the part that kills me. Like the actual people whose job it is to know things. I'm telling you, every time you go somewhere, you get these half-baked explanations, or you just get redirected to another number or person. Go here, drive there, call this. I'm gonna switch you over to this number, and then that person's gonna switch you over to this number, and then that number that they're gonna switch you over to is either gonna disconnect or be someone who says they don't know what you're talking. Like just bad, just trash. I'm normally the biggest person on the side of employees. We talk about auto workers and people that work with food and in healthcare, but honestly, state and local like government employees, if they all were mass fired, I wouldn't even bat an eye because it's just so incompetent, man. So confused, totally useless, just trash, total garbage walking on this earth. Like, imagine having a job where you get to sit behind a desk, and if someone asks you a question, oh, call this number. You're literally just there for to like half of your job is just redirecting people places, or most of it just seems to be sending this person there, send that person there. And you ask, like, why do we need that? Why is that a person even in a position? Because I swear they don't even know what they're talking about. Like if you're a statewide official, or more, you know what, more specifically, if you're a county official and you're so dumb that you don't even know that the deadlines for elections have passed, when one of the criterias of your job is knowing about, matters having to do with deadlines and filings and whatnot, you should be fired. Like you're an idiot. That's what I said. Just the most incompetent people have jobs. It's so embarrassing. There are so many people when they're doing a job, you'll just like watch them, and you would think in a second they're gonna start drooling or something. Just brazen incompetence. And again, I excuse most of it when it comes to these, like I go and order some food from somewhere, they don't give me a straw, whatever. I go and I don't know, what's another example? Go to the movie theater, maybe the person there forgets to give me my change. It happens, but like it's really dangerous to have people in government positions not know anything or very little about the actual things related to their job. Like they're just so used to sending people on these goose chases that they'll just give you a random number that has usually nothing to do with what you're talking about, and then not even be aware that, like, yeah, this person was their attempt to do this was down arrival because they already missed the deadline. So it's all just screwy, like every last bit of it. But of course, if you're a active, regular politician, you can have all your friends call, because and that's always the part that just kills me. Like I don't have as I explained in the video, a support system. I don't have a group of people that can just do things for me while I go and work or do whatever. So everything has to be, you know, you squeeze this in here, squeeze that in there. It drives me nuts. Yeah, but when I say rigged, I'm not talking about switching votes. I'm not talking about stuffing ballots. It's rigged, but in the sense that the any newer person that wants to get involved in this stuff is going to see themselves like pushed out or not able to do it by virtue of mass confusion and deliberate ignorance on the part of the employees of at these various facilities, who should be able to, if not answer your question directly, not send you on 50 different referrals. Like when you call a number and you just keep getting transferred because nobody knows how to answer something, that's insane. But don't worry, they're gonna get theirs. If I have to call these people every goddamn day for the following year and next year, we'll do it. This whole thing of not answering questions and, oh, just wait 5 months. Nah. If I even so much as wonder uh if I can vote in my own election, I will call them. We're gonna turn them into just nothing but calls and calls and calls. I tell you, man, it's sad. Somebody's outside dragging something. Yeah, I had this After they posted a picture of their, I guess it was like a wedding anniversary a few days ago, and they were like remarking it's been 10 of the best years of their life or whatever. And I don't know, I just feel like a certain, I've always said this, anytime we get to the point where you see anniversaries and people kind of like doing the whole lovey-dovey couple stuff, I just kind of get like a melancholic feeling, because we talked about how you have this prolonged period where there's just nothing with women. Like, even if are active as far as being on different sites and going to places, you still like just end up with nothing. And it's you watch that and you say, so you're supposed to sit here again with nothing and see other people like celebrate not only just being with someone, but like, oh, it's been 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and like not feel a sense of frustration on the part that you have not received this and likely never will receive it, and to know that the position of your detractors is to just blame you no matter what you do. Like, if you don't ask out women, it's your fault. If you do ask out women, it's your fault. Oh, you didn't wear this, you didn't say that. It's just awful, man. That's why I said relationships are based on fraud. Because like I'm sensible enough to know that when people post stuff on social media, oftentimes it's an image of something, not an actual you know true version of what has occurred, right? But to me, it's just the fact that like every time you turn around, somebody has this perception like, oh yeah, we're so happy, we're doing so great, and you're like, well, I guess that would be nice to feel or to have. It would be nice to be met with the same, or I don't. It doesn't have to be like identical, because there are some people just don't want to get married, but like there are people who actually stay together for years even without getting married, and then you kind of just sit back and say to yourself, isn't it insane that like even with them, there's still like a sense of commitment and actually wanting to be with someone. And I never had that feeling with a lot of this stuff. It just kind of happens, it just you just watch it to where it all sort of becomes like a blurred image. But if you're still here, Jim, I'm trying to do FDR part one. I just have to edit it. That's the only thing stopping me. Because after that, I'll probably do Johnson part five, and then like switch back and forth between the two of them. Yeah, it's just one of those things, man. People are they love the appearance of stuff. They love the imagery of something. They love to sit there and just kind of have an idea of what something is. And again, I'm not going to say I don't fall for it. I don't look at this stuff and sometimes think, oh, this person must actually like, if somebody says they're proud of their kid, for example, on a social media post, I don't say, oh, they're lying, right? But there are probably obviously instances where they've had troubles with each other. Um, and for me, it's just one of those things where it's hard to watch that and not notice, like, yeah, this is not what people say it is. I don't know what happened to Jim. He was so talkative at first, and then he just vanished. Mm. He was speaking with such commonality, and then he just ceased altogether. Mm. Very disappointed. I did actually at one point, many years ago, consider doing documentaries on all the presidents, but the biggest issue is that at that time it was just a matter of, you have to go out and get all these different books, but then also many times, there's always the perception of, if you do this, you're like overexerting yourself for nothing. That's why with the Johnson one, I said, okay, we're gonna pick one and carry that through. And so far I mostly have. I still have to obviously get, the part 5 and 6 and 7, all the rest of that, but there has been progress on that. But it really just comes down to, is there an audience for this? And I never felt like, as a smaller content creator, there was an audience to just make all that stuff and just create all of it. I'm out shopping. I thought Black Friday passed. I thought that was over. Can't believe you would sit there and go out shopping while we reconnect and discuss our strategy for the for the election. Your documentaries are great. There is a market. Well, all I'm conveying to you is that they're done the way that they are, because I don't want to get burnt out. Like, I used to have whole Google Docs of scripts for these things that were like several pages long, and usually when I do a part, it is several pages long, or like 10 or 20 or whatever. And I just said, man, it's crazy to have all this work stacked on top of you and then get like, what, 100 views, 300 views. So all I'm saying is that it's just one of those things where it takes longer, because it's like you just have to decompress. Like, part one of FDR could be done as early as tomorrow. I'm not even saying that to be funny. It's about 30 something minutes long. I've got all the stuff recorded for it. I just have to get the pictures and edit it. But if you ask me for part two, haven't really done that much for it. Um, and like I said, one of the things I'm thinking of doing is having Johnson as like the main one that I try to finish, and then you put out like part one, part two of other ones. Like, you would get FDR part one, then you would get Johnson part five, then you would get, you know, uh either FDR part two, or Carter part one. And I would do it that way, just to not get so invested in one. I thought it'd be funny if I did one on Nixon and I filmed my scenes. Like, if I finished doing the whole thing, film the scenes of my commentary at the Nixon library, just like on the steps of it or whatever. Be like, what are you doing out here? Filming isn't allowed, or something to that effect. No, I think he would probably be the one I would want to do the most, besides LBJ, FDR, and Carter. Oh man. It's hard to do this stuff sometimes. Just to get the motivation to want to, pump it out, so to speak. I have to admit, Gene Edward Smith's FDR book from 2007 is a really authoritative look at his life. I mean, it's not too long. It's like 600 pages, um, and it's. I mean, I feel like I understand him better than after reading it than before. I just wish more was written about his life prior to becoming president. Like more time was spent on his 4 years as governor. And it's actually one of my frustrations that him and Carter kind of have a similar thing where it's like they were governor for 4 years, and even after reading about that period, I still don't think I understand it that well. Um, like I know that Roosevelt was installed as governor as a kind of you know through the machinations of Al Smith when he ran for president, but they don't really go into what he did that much. It's just kind of whatever. It's like 20 pages. I wish. I think the only other books I probably would have preferred to have were Doris Kearns Goodwin. I think it was called No Ordinary Time, which was about the relationship between Eleanor and FDR. But other than that, I think we're good to go. It'll definitely probably not be as long as the. Well, I'm not going to say that. It's going to be at least in total probably 5 or 6 hours um, altogether if I use material from both books. I don't use anything from Conrad Black's book for part one. I still haven't read the whole thing, so I'm not. That book is massive. This type of book you could throw at somebody and they'd have a concussion. It's huge. I'm just imagining if Jem decides to write a book on me and it's called is Conrad Black's book is called Champion of Freedom. Jem's book on me would be called Champion of Thanklessness. Just no matter what you do, it's never enough. You think I'm kidding? When they called me into the office last week at the job, I was like, "Oh man, I'm in trouble for something. I'm probably getting fired." All right, well, it was nice having it, and I knew this day would come. Said it's anytime you get called into the office, it's like 99% of the time something bad. You think I'm kidding? I'm not trying to make myself sound like some notable, influential, big, huge, giant person, but it would be really interesting to actually do documentaries on all of the presidents, or at least all of the modern ones, the ones after Hoover, and then like write a book on the making of that because some are easier than others. Like I gave you the example before of how if I did one on Obama, I probably would defer to his memoir for information about his early life because that's the period where like these people are the most believable as a primary source. But then when you're talking about his actual time in office, especially the presidency, I probably would just use print sources. Like I wouldn't even use an actual book for that. It's the same thing with Bush and Clinton. Really, the last one you can use a book for, and it's like mostly all right is probably Bush 41. Because I know the John Meekum book is the one that people say is like the authoritative biography of him. But yeah, one of my biggest problems with just trying to make these is again like not trying to feel overwhelmed. Like, oh, I'm gonna do all of it because that's where it starts. Like, oh man, got to get this book, have to pick that up. So I'm just gonna take my time with a few, and depending on how I feel after doing a few, I'll proceed from there. So if I'm able to do, you know, Johnson and FDR and Carter and Nixon, then hey, maybe you can move on to Truman and Eisenhower and uh, I don't even know who else I would do in that scenario. I guess maybe yeah, and then Bush 41, and then probably mm, think of somebody else. But you get the idea. Just have to take your time, pick out someone, get like really invested in their story, and then go from there. But no, it's pretty. I'm pretty dead set on doing Nixon. I can't not do the only president born in my state. I'm just imagining a 1,000-page book on me. I wouldn't even believe it. I'd be like, there's no way I've done anything that important. This thing is massive. It's so big that I keep forgetting what part of it I'm somewhere in like the 600s as they're describing the beginnings of World War II. Um, but I keep like losing the exact page number I was on. But yeah, Jem, do me a favor. Between now and the next, I'd say probably next month, give me your mailing address. It could be a PO box, so we can. Where is it? We can send you that hat with your hero's name on there. Hey, it was made in the USA. So yeah, just give us a few your address. Well, look, if I can keep Nikki, you can keep the hat. So when I received a call from Barnwell, South Carolina, about 2 or 3 days ago, I 2 days ago rather, I thought it was one of my relatives. I'm not even kidding. I thought somebody from because I've explained to you before. My grandmother was from Camden, South Carolina. I thought it was one of my family members on her side calling me because I was like, why else would I be getting called from that state? And oh wow, it's the Haley presidential campaign seeking another contribution. Look, Jem, I want you to stop telling these fibs. Haley is your favorite presidential candidate since Michelle Bachmann in 2012. And if Haley doesn't win this time, you're either going to try to run her again in 2028, or you're going to try to get what's the other one, Governor Noam from South Dakota to run, or Tulsi. So let's stop kidding ourselves. I tell you, the saddest thing is that I've never been more disappointed in a politician, probably, than because people were like, "Oh, Bernie endorsing Hillary was so awful," but The biggest disappointment to me was when Warren tried to say that Sanders told her that a woman couldn't win the 2020 election, just because it made no sense because like he campaigned for Clinton more than anyone that wasn't a member of her family during 2016, and it's like she knew her campaign referring to Warren was like on the the fritz, so she had to make up this fake story about him being sexist to try and like siphon off some votes. It's just so sad, man, because it's like Warren, she'll go after some bankers, and I'll go, yeah, yeah, but there's something in that lady. It has nothing to do with gender. It's just this is what she is. That does not allow her to take affirmative stances on issues and to actually stick with the few people that ideologically support her. Like Sanders has people who are despondent with him because they don't like the way he responded to this issue or that issue. But I'm telling you, I've always felt like even when he's trying to like, be friendly with Biden or whatever, there's still like a set number of issues that you can count on him to say, I support this, I back this. Warren just slithers and goes from here to there. And like it's I thought she wasn't as bad as Harris in doing that, but honestly, if you put up a primary and it like for 2028 and it's Harris versus Warren, I might support Harris. Like Warren really upset me with regard to that story. Like it made me turn my back on her permanently. I was like, yeah, this lady is through. I can't, Massachusetts can have her. She doesn't we don't need her for any higher office. And I find that really sad because she's not stupid. Many times when she discusses policies, I'll agree with her, but I just don't trust her. Like that story really just brought out the worst feelings I've had about, or I guess a recent. I'll put it this way: I've never gone from being such a firm supporter of someone relating to a politician to just outright getting disgusted every time. Like I actively avoid stories with her in them ever since that happened. And I said, the thing about Sanders is that you can look at his 2000, you can look at like his congressional record and say he didn't pass like a whole bunch of bills. Um, but there is no question that the 2016 and 2020 campaigns moved the Democratic Party leftward. Yeah. But I was saying there's no question that the party was moved leftward by his presidential campaigns, even if his congressional record isn't, some big, huge set of accomplishments. Warren doesn't really have anything in the Senate that I can say she's actually done. And this is starting to become like a recurring theme with a lot of politicians where they're really not doing anything. I mean, even after he ran for president, Sanders still tried to, go after Bezos and like use his pulpit as a United States senator to try to enact some change, even if he couldn't get a bill through. Um, I'm noticing more and more that like these people will have a whole term in office, and when you say, "Hey, what have they done?" You're like, look at somebody like Tom Cotton. That's a guy whose whole career to this day was defined by the fact that after being in office for only 3 months, he thought he knew more about Iran than the American president did, and went behind his own country's back to have them sign some letter against the Iran nuclear deal. And because Arkansas is such a red state, we're going to be seeing that buffoon for another 20 or 30 years. So get excited for that. It's just this is such a sick era for America. It really is. Everything is backwards. Everything is screwed on the upside down. Like it's bad. Just wondering where Jem keeps this. Oh yeah, he's shopping. I forgot. He's out buying some beans. And I'm telling you, you can't even. I'm listening to. Oh well, I'm only. I guess kind of getting a little more silent because this person keeps screaming. So when anytime you see a pause, it's because of that. Apologies for the lack of comments. It is what it is, man. I've had all types of streams where it was like me going for a whole hour and nobody said anything, and I was just like, whatever. It's all part of the courtesies of being a small content creator. I was surprised by the comments on I can't run because I thought I only saw the number. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. I get to 5 people respond. I saw you wrote no like 3 times, and then this other guy was like, "You should get involved with third parties." I'm like, "Yes, let me get involved with the people who hold no seats in office anywhere, uh, as part of an effort to run for and win. Yeah, brilliant strategy. That's why I said sometimes with those like random guys that I've never seen before, I don't even respond. Like they just start writing weird stuff. It's just like when I did my video on Christy Noam endorsing Trump, and like somebody came on there talking about you're wrong when you say South Dakota isn't a main state. It's like it's not. It's a red state. South Dakota hasn't been blue since George McGovern, and that was Jem. That was quite a while ago. When you run in a general for president, nobody care. No Democrat cares about South Dakota. It's a red state. Yes, exactly. Dude, South Dakota is the same state where they got rid of the Democratic leader in the Senate. Tom was it Tom Daschle? Daschle. He's like one of the few Senate leaders ever to lose re-election. That's just because the state was so damn red. I don't know if you remember that, but he was beaten by John Thune, and that guy is still there. South Dakota is as red as you get. It is solid red. It's bright, shiny, sparkling red. So for that lady to try and say that I'm wrong because I said it's not a main state, it's not competitive, it's not purple, it's just a state that they know how it'll vote. No Democrat would even waste their time stepping foot over there. Dude, South Dakota is so red that they haven't had a Democrat as governor since my parents were in preschool. Or like shortly before they entered preschool. Like they've had they have had the longest streak of one party rule of any state in the for the governorship. They haven't had Democrat as governor in over 40 years. And Noam actually almost came up short, or rather did worse than Republicans usually do, because 2018 was supposed to be like the blue wave or whatever. So It's red. It's gonna stay red for a while. Most voters are clueless. Well, I already explained before that, like, my biggest problem with that lady in that district is I never saw her campaign. I never saw a flyer, a brochure, an email, a call, nothing. Like, how do you not even bother showing up in the district in the slightest? But then somehow you get a term in the House? Really? Because you were a state legislator before that or had some other office before, like, for real? Really? That's why I said it's all just such a joke because she knows the zombies will turn up. Well, what it is that people look on the ballot and they see, remember, it's a blue district, right? Democrat, Democrat, Democrat. They vote for the Democrat. And I told you that voter participation was down for her first term. The lady that she replaced received 200,000 votes the last time that she ran. This one only got 80, it's like 80,000, like not even half. That's why I said I thought that she was a weak incumbent. The zombies only see red or blue. Yeah, it's the welcome to the two-party system. And Jim, look, I know this has been a really disappointing election year for you. You wanted me to run for the House. You wanted Haley for president. You wanted, you know, Noam to take over 8 years later, but it doesn't look like it's gonna work out that way. Hey, I saw your strategy. You wanted Haley for 2024 and 2028. Then you wanted Noam for 2032 and 2036. Then you wanted Sarah Huckabee Sanders for 2040 and 2048, 44 rather. Then you wanted what's that other one? Ernst. Yeah, you wanted Ernst for 2048 and 2052. Dude, I feel so bad for Ernst because she said that she used to be married. She said her husband like talked her out of being Trump's running mates. Um, like because she was apparently on Trump's list for possible VP picks back in 2016, to where she did meet with Trump at one point about it. I was like, wow, if she had been picked, we would have been spared most likely more, like Pence would have just been governor of Indiana. And there's a good chance he probably wouldn't have run for president at all. Man, that would have been nice to avoid that. Dude, Noam is so desperate to be Trump's VP. It is embarrassing. Like, well, you know what Pence's real problem is? He thought Trump was going to win in 2020, and then he would be the natural successor. Um, but in running against him, it was like, why would anyone go with the understudy when they go with the main guy again? What do you have to offer that we can't just get with Trump again? And he could never answer that question. So between not being able to answer that question and constantly running out of money and getting in kind of late too in June, it's not a surprise that his campaign only lasted what, 3 months? July, August, September. Yeah, 3 months, 4 months. Mm. If I were him, I would have just waited until 2028 because I don't think Trump is going to run again if he loses. Grover Cleveland actually would be a really good one to talk about for this year. Like as Trump tries to become the second president to get a non-consecutive second term. Frankly, I'm fed up with American politics. Well, I mean, I am in a way too, but I can't just say, oh well, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. Foreign and domestic. I mean, foreign. All we really do at this point is just talk about Ukraine and Israel, and they really haven't even been talking about Ukraine over the last few months. It's mostly just been, Netanyahu this, Hamas that. I do like that someone said that the Israeli Hamas conflict is the new McCarthyism, where like it used to be, oh, you're a communist. Now it's, oh, you're an anti-Semite. I'm just imagining like bringing back McCarthy and having him just, it's like, this person made a video where they said that we should, well, be even between Israel and Palestine. They're clearly anti-Semitic. It's very obvious from their rhetoric. And I don't know if you ever heard McCarthy speak, Jem, but that was my impression of him. Like, just I'm just imagining just with the 5 o'clock shadow. Looks like this person has put out another anti-Semitic video, and they're talking about these things again, and we need to stop these people from saying bad things. The new McCarthyism. I tell you, that's what they do when they call everybody socialist, talking about Venezuela and um, Marxists and all the, just that's all them running on the new Red Scare, where it's like, okay, I'm a socialist. Now, what does that have to do with the fact that most Americans live paycheck to paycheck? What does that have to do with the fact that the minimum wage hasn't been increased in over 10 years? What does that have to do with the fact that the US's infrastructure gets a rating of D plus? What does that have to do with the I mean, it's like, you see what I mean, of how they use these terms to obfuscate from issues actually affecting people. It's all scare tactics. Yes, this is the new Red Scare. I mean, they do the same thing with women, but that's another story. I'm gonna send the RNC chair an email, ask if I can interview her for my channel. That'd be the funniest thing, to take all the different like politicians and just send them an email asking to do an interview and like see if any of them respond. It doesn't even have to be like an in person. We could just be on like Zoom or something. We'll see. Because they always try to hide from regular, especially if you're a regular person that doesn't have like a whole bunch of subs. They act like you don't exist. And that's the part that kills me, because it's like, you want to appear humble for the voters, but then if a voter who's not a constituent but still someone that's like interested in this stuff, if a voter shows up and is like, "Hey, can I speak to you about these issues?" Da, da, da. Oh no, we're not interested. That's crazy. But that's why I said this stuff is so. It's funny how they always try to make it sound like they want to be public servants, but at every turn they're like dodging the public. Ignore struggling Americans to give, but give billions to Ukraine. Remember, we're stupid for wanting a war on poverty, but they can wage that war on Ukraine. Remember, for what Biden says, long as it takes. But you're not going to believe me when I tell you the U.S. is backwards. Imagine such a statement. Well, you remember when he said that, right? I did a video about it. We're just gonna give them this infinite amount of money, and you voted for him. That's your hero. I'm not even kidding. I would still go around the district and just like ask people, "What do you think of this? What do you think of that?" With Ukraine, it's like South Vietnam all over again. Remember, If President Trump had been in his second term, Ukraine would not have been invaded by Putin because he would have spoke very strongly and pushed his America First agenda. That was the funniest part. Like, it's one thing to say, okay, I would have handled this differently, but oh, if I were there, this would have never occurred. According to what? He did nothing to change the the deed state or the deep state. I already tell you the whole. It's all just lies and scams with him. And like it's even more egregious because when politicians used to lie 30, 40, 50 years ago, they didn't have cameras, but like we have him on tape saying things and then doing something completely different and his followers just don't care. They don't believe in facts or evidence. That's why I really dread the possibility of doing a documentary on him because when we get to the presidency and I start talking about he said this but then did that and they get mad, it's like I'm not I'm just stating what occurred, you know. Literally, these people reject evidence. They've been trained by him to not believe reality. How does the CIA director end up being the Secretary of State? I thought Pompeo was your favorite Secretary of State since Kissinger. How does the Exxon Mobil guy end up being the Secretary of State? Because all this, say what you want about Rice and Clinton and Albright and Powell, but at least with them, it's like there was a military experience, there was some State Department experience. Tillerson had none of that. Like his whole claim to fame is I'm rich, I'm wealthy, I've been to other countries, put me in. No, I know you were trying to draft Rice to run for president in 2012 and defeat Obama, but she just wouldn't do it. You sent her a letter at Stanford. You were like, please, Secretary Rice, save the Republican Party. Dude, my favorite thing is I was watching. They did the interview with her after the Israeli Hamas conflict started. It was with Hannity, right, like a month or two ago. And somebody in the comment section was like, "We should have had Rice for president." This other person's like, "It's too late now. She's old." I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about? She's not even 70." You're like, dude, imagine living in an era where you have an 80-year-old president and people have the nerve to tell you the lady who's over 10 years younger than him is too old. But that's why I said, like, you literally live in the twilight zone, like literal twilight zone. Our current Secretary of State is awful. Dude, did you see? You probably never saw this, but there's like a picture of Biden talking, and like you can see Blinken like in the corner, like when you go through a door, and maybe a picture frame only gets like the side of your face for the. He looks so creepy. Like he's like, oh, what's he gonna say? The head movement. Man, I'm telling you that reading that comment section was sad. I think Rice, if she had tried in like 2012 or I'm not gonna say eight, but like 2012, that would have been the year. Like it's the same thing with Christie, where there was a year for the kind of more moderate sort of you know northern western Republican, but it's dead now. It's all just extremist and stuff at this point. Stop with the moral pretenses and trade with the world. Stop trying to dominate. Oh no, they love dominating. They love sticking a finger in your face and telling you what you should and shouldn't do. That's their favorite hobby. People are sick of it. Oh, of course, but they themselves are not sick of it. They want to perpetuate it. Now, Jim, I'm still waiting for you to explain to me who is the leader of the Democratic Party. Nobody's been able to tell me. I've been asking for so long. We know who the leader of the Republicans are, but that's why I said we don't even have a Republican Party anymore. It's the Trump Party. They have no leader. Isn't it crazy that you had this young, charismatic president who still is not old, and after he gets out the White House, he just vanishes. You just never hear from him again, never see him. When he does speak, it's like a cameo. He has a little statement. Oh, here's the books I read this year. Here's the movies I saw this year. That's the closest thing they have to a leader, and he's like hiding in his bunker on Martha's Vineyard. What an embarrassment. Obama is concerned about the pockets. I actually, with my relative, he speculated that the reason Obama doesn't talk anymore is because he's worried that if they investigate Biden, they'll find some. I said that doesn't add up because if you remember, Jem, oh, Biden didn't run for president until Obama had been in office for multiple years, 2 years, and he wasn't saying anything then either. So it really just comes down to, like Bush, he doesn't care. He got his 8 years. Whatever, I'm done. Isn't it sad that people always want to like invent theories that are like not based on, because somebody could say, if for example Cheney had ran for president in 2012 or 2008 and won, right? Oh, the reason Bush doesn't say anything is because he's worried that if you investigate Cheney, you'll get it. It's like, no, he just, after all these years, we know he doesn't care, because it's not like he was silent for a month or for a year. No, it's been 6 years and he hasn't done anything. Well, other than have his presidential library make people homeless by being situated somewhere that was going to tear up a bunch of apartments. But no leader. I guess that's one of the reasons I keep bringing up Ted Kennedy, because at least when he was alive, they had a national figure that they could all like, in like the most basic of senses, rally around. But now there's nothing. Because even with Sanders, he's still deferential to Biden, who's like mostly hiding in the bunker. So it's a leaderless party. It's a leaderless party that loses winnable elections. It's sad, but they only have themselves to blame. I do feel bad for the voters though, because they're the ones that get the biggest brunts of getting screwed over. Like Roe v. Wade being overturned should have never happened, but they allowed it to. All they had to do was codify it in the law, and even when they had super majorities in Congress, they just never bothered with it. What an embarrassment. I just feel so bad for Jem. His look. I don't know if she's gonna make it in New Hampshire. I know she's down by a few points, but you're just gonna have to pray. You're gonna have to make sure that she's able to clear it out. For your sake, I hope she is. I didn't even know that thing had ripped over there. Wow. They want the fight over women's rights. It provides for the endless recognition of talking points from decades. And it's a nice payday for them. You saw that they raised a whole bunch of money off of the outrage. Dude, imagine like failing to safeguard basic rights for somebody and then fundraising a whole bunch of money. Could you imagine if during the like 60s, right? The Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act just failed. Like they weren't able to pass it. And then all of a sudden you go and you look at some news article and it says Democrats have raised, I don't know, 2 million overnight from African Americans for their failure to safeguard the voting civil rights legislation. It's like that doesn't make any sense. Why would you give money to the people who let you down? Oh no, they don't care because remember, most of them are wealthy. So if they need to, get reproductive rights, they can fly to a state that has it. They can drive to a state that has it. They can even go to another country that has it oftentimes. So they don't it doesn't bother them one bit. And it's like it doesn't affect me, but I still think it's gross that the people who failed get a pat on the back financially, a kickback. Doesn't make any sense, man. They don't care in the slightest. Everything to them is just a payday. When they fail and mess things up, they still end up getting some coins off of it. And it's really embarrassing because it's like the party that everyone already knows is against that stuff, right? They're going to get donations from religious groups and all types of fundamentalists who just want to take things back to the Stone Age. So you turn to the party that's supposed to be the progressive one, the one that accepts everyone with this big inclusive tent, and somehow they can't even win more than half the elections in the country at a time. Like it drives me nuts that they still struggle in Louisiana. And I showed you where when Sessions was running for his what ended up being his last term in the Senate, Democrats didn't even try to run someone against him. They didn't even bother. How does Kana get elected in Cali? Well, he followed a strategy pretty similar to mine. He ran in 2014 and lost, and he came back better organized with more knowledge of what to do and ran in 2016 and won. but he's from Silicon Valley, so a lot of his talking points and rhetoric are related to you know tech jobs and various other things of that are representative of where he's from. But honestly, I always preferred him over the squad because I felt like AOC got elected and just kind of leapfrogged in terms of name recognition over him, and it drove me nuts. Um, what I think will happen is after if Barbara Lee gets that Senate seat, she will probably have maybe like 2 terms, and then after that, he can run for it and hopefully win it. The answer is they are looking for perfect candidates, no unicorns. Put them on the ballot. Allow the candidates to make their ones to be elected. Oh yeah, I'm just saying that with him, um, I do prefer like if we're looking at progressives beyond Sanders, he's probably the most ideal, just from my opinion perspective, which however you want to refer to it. Because I really don't think the squad members are ready to do much of anything besides run their mouths. I mean, not even what was it last year? We had one of them pull a fire alarm to get people out of office or out of the building. So I just I don't know what the future of progressives in America is. I don't. It's not looking too good. The squad, dude. You ever like? I'm not even kidding. Progressives are the most fractured group I've ever seen, and it just comes down to there's a segment that are all in on apologizing, excusing anything the squad or Sanders or whoever does. There's another segment, kind of like myself, who are kind of like, if they do something good, you give them credit, but a lot of times you like want more. Uh, and then there's the group that are just done with everybody. You can't organize. Like that's one of the reasons why I don't really bring up Door anymore because it's like it just feels so counterproductive to me to say let's not even bother trying at this point. Let's just accept things are going to stay the way they are unless there's this mass mitigation of people. Because anytime you've had change in the US, whether you like it or not, it's mostly come through elected officials. Very little good being done over the past decade. I still can't believe the national minimum wage is only 7.25. That's insane. Well, Jim, I mean, if you're going to take that perspective, then you shouldn't have been upset that I didn't get to run because it's like I just would have lost anywhere if I did win. Become the thing I hated. That's why I said when you have the defeatist belief that every person who runs for something is going to let you down or disappoint you in this mass degree to where it didn't even matter if they won in the first place or not. We might as well not even like this should just all be over anyway. No, seriously, like I guess we might as well not even like bother trying, period. If the end result is just going to be this person that I liked is now suddenly the thing that I didn't like, or they voted one way I didn't like a few times or once or whatever, so they're no longer good. He did the same thing to Nina Turner. Nina Turner used to be the darling of his channel, of TYT. Honestly, she was probably closer to being a unifying figure than damn near anyone who'd run for office in the progressive space because it was this person who didn't have any office at the time that they were like really getting familiar with her. So she didn't have a voting record you could really like screw with and pick apart and criticize and complain about. But now, after she ran for the House and didn't came up short, whatever, uh, Dore made a video talking about how she responded to one of his tweets in a way he didn't like, and how she had already let them. I mean, it's just, and this is my point of how I don't see the the logic of taking the few people who are ideologically similar to yourself and constantly tearing them down. I don't get where that's going to do us any benefit or good. How long should the voters wait? It's very frustrating. Well, look, the reality is The U.S. progressive movement is not an organized coalition of people, and a lot of the regular milquetoast Democrats do not support things that progressives do. So uh, the only alternative I can think of, because like the third party thing is out of the question. If you're talking about trying to do something fast, you're not going to get it through third parties. You have to change the whole voting system for that, where you have to get put in ranked choice voting so people can actually pick who they want and not feel like, oh, my vote's been wasted, whatever. But it's one of those things where you're gonna have to over the course of multiple election cycles, you're gonna have to probably at first have a Democratic majority in the House and Senate. And then from there, you can have some series of Democrats introduce, whether it be the Green New Deal, minimum wage increases, um, infrastructure bills, things of that nature. And then when there are Democrats who vote against those things, like Joe Manchin, like Cinema, then to get rid of them in 6 years or 4 years or 2 years. But realistically, this might be something that takes 10 or 20 years to get done at its fastest. That long. Any conflict in America that is truly transformative tends to take a long time when there are people in positions of power who are against it. Well, we just have to be more organized against these people. Like a big person like Pelosi, I don't think you can beat her in a House race. She's been representing that district too long. But most of these other little members of the House that want to vote against things that Democrats actually want, they're gone easy. Well, dude, look at I mean, if you want to draw a comparison, look at rights for African Americans. Look how long that took. Like, what I mean? I mean, it's just one of those things where it has to come gradually, and and unfortunately, unless we see some mass election of a bunch of yeah, well, look, I'm just telling you the truth. I don't think it's going to come any faster by trashing the few people that are on our side over and over again and calling them sellouts and traitors and whatnot. Like, if I get elected to the House, I'm just one vote. I'm one singular vote, and maybe there's 9 or 10 or 12 others that are vote like me on most issues, but we're still a minority. Now think about it. Think about African American rights. First, slavery, 100 years of that, or excuse me, I guess yeah, 70, 80. Civil rights, Emancipation Proclamation. Then literally 100 years of lynchings and hangings and crosses being burned in front of your house, whites only sign, 100 years of that. And then you get the Civil Rights Act of 1957, which is like watered down from what a lot of more progressive members of Congress wanted at the time, whatever. But still, it was a big step in terms of breaking past that Southern bloc that always knocked down every civil rights bill. And then, what, 6 years later, 7 years later, Civil Rights Act 1964. So that's why I said some of this stuff takes time. Remember, Sanders first ran for president not even 10 years ago, 2015. So in that time period, we've had multiple people elected to Congress that are of his ideology, that support many of the same views. But it's going to take some time for them to become a sizable. It doesn't have to be a majority. It could be 50 people, and that would still be a sizable portion of the Democratic conference in the House, or maybe even just 10 senators in the Senate that can say, "Hey, we want the Green New Deal. We want a minimum wage increase." You better vote no on all the nonsense which no one wants to talk about, the pre-60s. Oh, there's a lot of stuff they want to talk about. I'm just explaining that A lot of anytime you want to make substantive change, there's usually steps. Um, there's oftentimes roadblocks, and you're dealing with some of the most powerful people in America that oppose these things. I mean, if you want to talk about ending war, you have to fight first of all, a bunch of politicians that love war, but also defense contractors and their donations to them. I mean, for we can't even get basic milquetoast gun laws because of the NRA. Not even like, oh, ban guns or anything. No, we're like just hey, background checks. This is you're trying to take away my weapons. No, no, no. That's why I said it's one of those things where where it has to be a gradual process. And people just are so impatient, and again, it's like I get the impatience, but when you tell me, "Oh yes, the 5, 10, 15 people that publicly support the position that you have on this issue, they've betrayed you." How? They didn't do the thing that they said they well, I mean, they're only 10 votes out of 300. Like, I don't know, it's just I think it's counterproductive. So if I were to get elected, I can't wait to be on Door's show, of him playing clips of me and calling me a traitor every night. That'll be real fun. NRA chairman just resigned, by the way. I mean, I don't get excited. They'll just replace him with somebody else with the exact same position. Literally, anytime you cut the head off of one of these agencies, they another one pops up in its place. But oh, you know what would be funny? So you know how the RNC chairwoman is like Romney's niece, and how they've lost every election or either lost or underperformed every election since she's become chairwoman. It would be funny if I was like running for something and I put her picture like in behind me, like in the background. Yeah, McDaniel. It would be funny, like we all have Rana's portrait behind us because she's such a gift to the Democrats. We frame her photo up. I would absolutely do something like that just to show like the lunacy of like that was the person I was supposed to save the GOP, and like she's had the complete opposite effect. Imagine every time you go to a Democratic Party headquarters, you see the RNC chairwoman's picture hanging up in the in the wall. It's like, why is she here? Oh, she's the one that saved us. She kept having these horrible candidates and barely raising any money, and yeah, put up a Reagan Obama portrait. Confused. No, it would be funnier with her because she's not like I would say most people who are over 40 and 50 and like some 30-year-olds, they look at a picture of Reagan, they know who that is. If you put up her picture, you have to explain who that is and then explain why that's there and like lead them into the joke. Like, yeah, the RNC chair is so bad at her job that we're happy, we're thrilled to put up her picture in tribute because she's helped us winning be so much easier. I actually did consider going to the Reagan Library a few weeks ago, but I just didn't want to drive 60 miles. I was like, yeah, I'm good. Feel like going out to Simi Valley. Maybe I'll attempt it in February because then that'll be the 10-year anniversary of the last time I went over there. Can you be a write-in candidate? I don't know. I'd have to ask them. You would think, right? You write somebody's name in. I would absolutely still campaign as a write-in candidate. It's like, yeah, the odds are less likely, but still, I'll ask. What about getting a man? I'm not. Look, I'm interested in Congress. I'm fine with not being mayor or governor. I'm interested in the House and Senate. Why don't you run for the city board? Why don't you run for the council? Why don't you run for mayor? No, 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 no. You can have it. That's like when Ethel Kennedy was bragging about Robert possibly running for governor of Massachusetts. He said, "Why would I want that?" Dude, the only governor of Massachusetts anybody remembers, the only two rather, are Dukakis and Romney. Yeah, Dukakis is the most bland, milk toast, boring. I don't know how he won the '88 primary. I'm serious. Out of any of the Democratic nominees for president, he's like the least accomplished, just most like random guy they could have picked out. Can't spell. No, that was Quayle. They couldn't spell that. You liked Quayle because he was one of the VPs from Indiana. You always like a VP from Indiana. That's why you voted for Trump. He's like, oh, he picked Pence from Indiana. Okay, yeah, I'll join him. It's so interesting how you look at Roosevelt's term, and he had one VP for the first two terms. Gardner, uh, and no one ever talks about him. Like I know very little about him. Indiana, the great flyover state. I don't know, man. If I made a list of states I'd like to go to, um, Indiana probably would be in the top 10. It would be like this. Again, these are ones I haven't been to. So first would be Texas, then New York, then Florida, the really big ones, right? Um, I would like to go to Georgia again at some point, but then after that, it would probably be Illinois, um, and then if we're going off the ones I can fly to, then South Carolina and Mississippi and um, hmm, the Jackson family home. I think it was Gary, Indiana, that they were from. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I go to New York, I could just drive to New Jersey. Like when I went to Alabama, I was fully intending to just be there, and I was like, oh well, Georgia's right by, or rather, Birmingham's right by Atlanta, so I guess I'll drive over there. Yeah, I could, but I'm not. You know what it is, right? That like a lot for me, a lot of the South has sentimental value for the history that's there, or for some family member that's there. Like my grandpa's from Mississippi. Um, you have the Jefferson Davis Presidential Library and Museum over there as well. Um, in Tennessee, you can go to the Lorraine Motel, right, for and see where King was assassinated. Um, so I'm just saying that for a lot of these different states, they have something there, and they oftentimes in the South they have at least one monument or thing I'd like to see when I go there. When I was in Alabama, I went and visited the 16th Street Baptist Church. I went and visited the grave of the Kings, the Ebenezer Church, King's childhood home that was all in Georgia, and then of course I visited Wallace's grave. So there were a lot of different sites. The original 13. Would you be mad if I said I have to sometimes look them up? I forget. That was one of my favorite things that my grandma was like, oh, yeah, back in your day, there were only 48 states. It's pretty surreal to think that there are people alive that remember when Alaska and Hawaii were not states. No, if I get a probably like a long weekend, I might just go and drive to Arizona just to see what it's like. No, I'd like to see Florida because it's one of the larger states. I'm actually kind of surprised Florida is like for as big as it is, you would think it would have more of a national presence, but it really doesn't. Like it was a pretty well-known swing state up until recently. But as far as like the politicians from there, they really are not that successful, which I find very interesting. People talk about, people across the US don't like people from California. It's like, you can say that, but there's a lot of politicians that aren't from this state that idealize Reagan. So nice try. We get what I'm saying, right? Like again, California, you've got Nixon and Reagan. Um, Obviously, other California politicians have run for president and failed, whatever. In Texas, you have LBJ and the Bushes. In New York, you have Trump and FDR. And probably somebody else I'm forgetting at this point. In Georgia, you have Carter. Like you would think that Florida, for as large as it is, would have a much larger, you know, imprint on national politics, but it really doesn't. It's just a state that used to be purple that people competed in, and like the politicians that come from there, they don't leave much of an impact, it seems. Like I guarantee you in 10 years, no one will be talking about DeSantis. Mark my words. Because look at Rubio. That was a guy that was floated as a possible running mate for Romney back in 2012. He was promoted as a top contender for president in 2016. And what is he now? Nothing. He's just a guy that sits on a Senate seat. No. This isn't even just about him. This is my point I'm making to you is Florida has a lot of politicians that are ambitious, that want to do things. Same thing with Jeb Bush. But for whatever reason, if you come out of that state, you're not going to get anywhere. And it's surprising because of how large it is. And could you imagine if Cruz actually won in 2016? That means that Texas would have 4 presidential libraries. I'd be so jealous. Yuck, he not winning anything. Well, you know what it is. He thought when he got in, oh man, I got a great chance. I'm young. You know, I fought against the Washington cartel, as he called it. It's like, no, you're a guy with a nasally voice who's in over his head, who who was one of the biggest losers to a game show host. So no, Trump is funny. Cruz is not. Cruz has well, I mean, nobody wants to listen to that all day. Yeah, I'm kidding. You go through any American president in recent times, they all have a soothing voice or maybe some communication style where you can just kind of, anyway, I gotta run. Okay, but yeah, I'm not surprised it didn't work out for him, and especially in retrospect, you can just see the writing on the wall. Have a great weekend. I'll try. It's it'll I think it'll certainly be an interesting one because I have to work tomorrow. You know, when you tell a place you can work on Sunday, they schedule you for every single Sunday. They make sure they get you. These jobs love it when people work on the weekend. That said, I can't do that. I have to have at least one day where I can relax. It really drives me nuts. Mm. Ugh. Mm. But no, I started the stream talking about that actress that posted the whole like, oh, 10 years of being with this person message. And I was just thinking to myself how interesting it is that like I know as an adult that people put stuff on social media that's supposed to be like a you know it's what they want you to see versus how things tend to be. But there's still a part of me that says, isn't it sad that as a single person, I guess you call it an involuntary one at that if they want to throw that term at me today. But it's like as a single person, you're supposed to watch people be together for these like really extraneous periods of time and not feel slighted or disillusioned in regards to yourself. I don't know. That's just the way I interpret it. I look at it. I'm like, wow. So let me just sit here and watch people celebrate their anniversaries as you sit there by yourself forever and ever. It is what it is. So all of it is just such an aggravation. Just because I don't have any beliefs in like the whole fairy tale that a lot of people spin on here, but it's just nothing, like nothing at all. The same old thing every year. Um, I don't think, yeah, I didn't mention this. There was well, I guess I go on that another day, but just like, I just had a good example this week of like that whole thing of people making it seem as if they like you or want to speak to you, and then you find out it was just another cruel joke. It's really aggravating, but not surprising because I mean they do this. They sit around, they smile in your face, but it means nothing. It's all just the same old frivolous crap. It's hard not to get irritated, though. I can tell you that because I always am upfront about the fact that a lot of times when you're sitting here and kind of just going through the motions of wanting to talk to people and speak to them and get involved with things, they don't care. Like I could work 30 jobs over the course of 10 years and get, I mean, hell, hundreds of thousands of views on here as well, and go to stores and different and even in being around all these different women, they will never speak to you directly. They will never initiate anything. And you'll have someone who will say, "Oh, why don't you just do it? Why don't you just go up?" It's like, for what? We have seen it a million times. People do not care. That's why I said it's just such a I don't know. Everything is so generic. Because I'll really sit there and be astonished that, like, at this late stage, there are people that do the whole, "Oh yeah, just you just have to have some game," that song and dance. Like, come on, man. We know this. Oh, yeah. There's just too much stuff that stays the same for too long a period, and then when someone naturally is like, okay, well, I guess this is just how this thing will always be. You'll have someone else who says, "Oh, you're negative." It's like, no, I'm looking at a predispose a a pattern that is continuous and obvious to anyone that can recognize the same thing happening over and over again. If you go to the store and the stuff in there costs $10, and the next day the stuff in there costs $10, and then the next week the stuff in there costs $10, uh the week after that's probably going to cost $10. But I don't know, it's so hard to like will myself into being involved with that stuff because I always remember all the different forms. And that's why I said there was like it was just overload, man. Too many chicks, like just too many of them, and really just too much effort. Like you stretch yourself so far for nothing. I mean, I mentioned before I was on Reddit damn near every day typing to some random woman, "Oh, how are you?" They come up there holding their friend wanted sign, and then you respond to them, and they you know act like they're interested in talking to you at first glance anyway. And after a while, you don't hear anything back from that person. They don't answer back. They say nothing. Oh, great, this thing wasn't even charging. Terrific. Technology is always so finicky. Yeah, all I can think to do today is probably run some run an errand, and I guess I'll come back here and try to do some more of the documentary. Um, what else can I do? I'm trying to think because there's really nowhere I want to go today. I mean, there is this one place where I heard they're hiring. I might maybe call up the place. They're like 30 miles away from me, so I don't feel like driving over there. But I don't know. A lot of times on Saturday, I like just sit at home and just kind of maybe I'll draw, maybe I'll write something. Maybe I'll read. Ugh, too many damn shoes, man. I tell you. This box, that box. I'm just sitting here marveling at some of this stuff. Now, there's a part of me that actually does kind of wonder what if I really tried to do like multiple, there's a ruler, to do multiple documentaries on different figures like concurrently with each other. But I always say I don't like to stretch myself out like that because it does have a because I'm already saying I'm gonna do like four different ones, which is right now it just sounds crazy, even though one of them is like halfway done. And then it's one of those things where like when you think of it from a technical perspective, there's some logic to it as far as you have an order, but you're still kind of like just dipping your toe in the water. Do I really want to do this? Just debating it. I, for the life of me, can't imagine like, you know, this person part one, and this person part one, and this person part one, and this person part. I don't think that would be a good way of handling this stuff. But I certainly have the materials for many of them. No, I just really like the idea of doing these because, well, I like to read. I like to put the information down in my own words and quote somebody if they wrote something that I don't think I can summarize effectively, or that I think would be better if I just read it verbatim. Uh, and people have been watching this stuff. So there's also that appeal of it as well. I don't know. I'm trying as hard as I can with this stuff, I tell you. I may come up short here or there, but I'm attempting, and I think that's I'm not gonna say it's the most important thing, but it is one of the more important things. Yeah, I don't know. It's a trying period. Not as trying as it was a few months back, but it's we're still not in the green yet. But I've always said I even when I fail, right? I like that I have some semblance of a goal because I think when people do things outside of going to school or working or whatever, it's not just the mundane existence. There's actually a overall structure of what this person wants to do. There's a process, if you will, like, hey, I want to try this, I want to, write that, go here. Because really the only reason I'm not more aggressive with trying to go to other states is just, related to finances. Like I can't afford to just fly over here whenever I feel like it. Uh Although I'm really trying hard for Texas because that is the one that I'd like to see before I die. If I can't go to Florida or New York, I want to go to at least Texas. I want to step foot in Dallas for one day, 5 days, whatever. Check out some of the sites. I very much would like to see it. No, it's just one of those things where you always have to, make an effort for something. I actually met a guy yesterday at work that said he grew up in Texas. I asked him how it was over there. He said that he was glad he grew up there. I was surprised too because he doesn't have any type of accent either. It just caught me off guard. But yeah, this whole thing with wanting to run, it was a setback. It was something that I think I've taken as good as I can take it. I'm not screaming, I'm not any of that. It's just I'm just stating what I believe, which is that the people in positions to actually tell you things are not helpful. And that did have an adverse effect on me, but they're going to be made helpful when you keep messing with them and they can't, you won't leave them alone until they answer your questions and stop sending you to on fruitless redirects that don't go anywhere. Um, God, I don't know what I'm gonna do today. I know I'm going up here to get this stuff. That'll probably take like I don't know. I might go to 7-Eleven and get a Slurpee because I wanted to get one yesterday, but I decided against it because when I left, I just felt tired and my legs were hurting, and just when you get off a 6, 7, 8 hour shift, sometimes just want to rest. I know that makes me sound lazy. Oh, he's so whatever, but I'm just telling the truth. Sometimes when I get off of a long shift, I just would like to lay down, sit down, however you want to describe it. So yeah, it's just one of those things. But the one thing that has definitely been on the up is the views. People are watching this stuff, and I am very appreciative of that. You have no idea how much. Because I said before, even if I'm not, I reconciled a long time ago, like the whole people don't watch stuff angle. Um, and I genuinely don't believe I'll ever crack 3,000 subs. Like I'll probably this is my full limit. But I said before, I'm fine with that as long as people watch stuff. As long as I can see some green with regard to that, anything else is superfluous. So yeah, it's just one of those things where you just keep trying and see what happens. Oh man. I'm trying to think of what else to say here. Like I said, I do sometimes procrastinate on things. I probably could have finished FDR Part One earlier this week. But I just a lot of times when I have a work day, everything I do is centered around preparing for the work period. So if I go to work at 5 or 6, I'm sleeping during a good portion of the day just to have the energy. Um, and even when I have hours where I'm like active or running errands, whatever, I still make sure to like try to get some more rest before I go in, as to not be tired. So that was the biggest problem. Ugh. Now, I'll freely admit if I didn't work, I probably could have finished it faster, but hey, it is what it is. I mean, I admit freely, I find this way more fulfilling than the stuff they have me doing up there. But like, I don't know. I guess for some people, whether you're an actress, actor, or musician, or even some of the political commentators that are on here, they're going to have jobs where they are excited to do it, where they're engaged with it, where it's stimulating to them in some way. And then with other people, regular ones like myself, we have to do things that we otherwise normally wouldn't do or wouldn't want to do for the sake of getting some coins. I'm not saying that to insult anyone. It's just that I do think about like, hey, it would be so much nicer if I could just do this, but that opportunity isn't afforded to everybody, I guess. So I think one strategy I'll try to employ is to see how much of the documentary stuff I can do for this month, and then um that'll serve as the basis of how much more I want to invest myself in it after that. Like use January as the point of just like going in that stuff as much as possible, and then after that go and say, hey, do I still want to do this? Are people watching it? Is there an appetite for it? Is there an audience for it? because I'm definitely if I don't do any of these other ones, I'm definitely doing Johnson Part 5. I mean, we're too far in to go back now. There's no turning back. Actually, I have the book right over there. Just have to get into it. So, thanks for showing up. We had a few interruptions, but nothing too insane. And have a good rest of your weekend.